Good morning, I'm Captain Wiley with the Kirkwood Fire Department. Things being a little bit different, a little bit crazy this year with COVID, we're not going to be able to come visit you guys for Fire Prevention Week. So this year we decided to do a video with some of the safety points we were going to talk about. I hope you enjoy it. We look forward to seeing you again. Hello and welcome to Fire Prevention Week 2020. The theme for this Fire Prevention Week is fire safety in the kitchen. With us being able to come to your schools and talk to you guys, we thought we'd do this video in a kitchen to give you some safety tips on how to prevent kitchen fires and be fire safe. Did you guys know that cooking is the leading cause of home fires and the leading cause of home fire injuries? And out of every day of the year, Thanksgiving is the leading day of cooking related issues, cooking related fires. Why is that? The number one cause for these cooking fires is unattended cooking. When I say unattended cooking, that means when you start cooking something on your stove, you walk away from it, you forget about it, you go watch TV, talk on the phone, play on your video games, and something happens. When you're cooking, it's very important that you pay attention to what's cooking, what's on the stove, and how it's cooking. Because sometimes, even if you get a small fire, you can get that put out before it gets to be a bigger fire. By leaving things unattended, you don't know when that fire starts. You don't know when you start having issues. So let's talk a little bit more about fire safety and how you can be safe in your kitchen. If you're frying things like bacon or fried chicken or any type of fried foods, sometimes that fried food has a tendency to catch fire. The grease in that pan has a tendency to ignite. One of the worst things that you can do for a grease fire is throw water on it, because water would cause that fire to spread. So one of the things you want to consider when you're doing and you're cooking, first off, is have a lid close to you when you're cooking. So that way, if a fire does start in your pan, all you need to do is grab your lid, put your lid on the pan, shut your burners off, and let your pan sit there until it cools. By putting a lid on your pan, it will smother that fire and it will put your fire out and it won't get any bigger. So that way, if you don't throw water on it, it won't spread. You put a lid on it, it goes out. One of the other things you want to consider when using pots and pans and frying pans on the stove, when you're cooking, try not to leave your handle sticking out. Because if you come by, you might bump it, you might knock it off your pan, off your stove, and by knocking it off your stove, you could easily spill it on a small child or a pet or on yourself. It can cause burns and situations to where you may have to go to the hospital to get those burns taken care of. So turn your handles away from the outside so you can't bump into them, so you can't knock them off your stove, and that way they stay safe on your stoves. One of the other things you also want to consider is when you're cooking, sometimes you use washcloths or hot pots. You don't want them to be laying near the stove. You want some room around your stove to where you have your towels and anything that could be combustible or could burn away from your stove. If you leave a towel or a hot pot or a pair of oven gloves close to your stove, there's a possibility that those could catch on fire also. One of the things you want to consider while you're cooking is also not wearing loose-fitting clothing. Because you're working around the burners and you're reaching over the stove, you want to make sure your loose-fitting clothing isn't going to be hanging down over your burners that could catch fire, and then your clothes would catch fire. Okay? So you wear nice, tight clothing, you're not going to have to worry about your clothes catching on fire. One of the last things you want to consider when you're working around a stove or when you're working in a kitchen is to have a kid-free zone. When we say kid-free zone, we're looking at a 3-foot space around your stove. That way there's nobody going to be in here playing around your stove. So when you think kid-free zones, a lot of you guys have tile floors in your kitchens, or you have wood floors in your kitchens. Sometimes those tiles or wood panels are 1 foot in length. So if you count out 3 big squares, that's 3 feet. So you're looking at 3 feet of space around your stove area. That way you're not going to be running in and out of there, you're not going to be playing in there, and mom and dad is able to cook and be able to be safe. That way nothing gets knocked off the stove. By following some of these rules, we can definitely lessen some of the chances of having unattended cooking fires and house fires in the kitchen. Thanks for watching.